Funding for Evening at Pops has been provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide, and by a grant from Digital Equipment Corporation, whose new Microvax 2 computer system makes full VAX power available at every desk in an organization.
On the 10 o'clock news, we're going to ask Bill Rodgers what he's going to do now to get the top runners back into the moneyed Boston Marathon. We're interviewing Superintendent Laval Wilson on the eve of school opening in Boston, and we're looking at the software gap in Star Wars. Stick around.
Next on Channel 2, a look at the news, followed by the day's market activity and the nightly business report. Stay tuned. Saturday night at 7:30, meet Howard. Suave, sophisticated, but not too scrupulous. Sort of a rogue. In fact, an embezzler. Definitely lovable and always in trouble. He's England's newest comedy hit, The Bounder. And then Monday night at 9, Quest for the Killers. 5 true stories about the dedicated doctors and scientists whose remarkable exploits have changed the face of modern medicine. And then Tuesday night at 9, questions of life and death strike even closer to home on MICU, Medical Intensive Care Unit. The place, Boston's Beth Israel Hospital. The issue, patients at the edge.
If you're going to make a mistake, you want to make a mistake on the side of keeping her going, not on the side of letting her die.
Watch The Bounder, Quest for the Killers, and MICU. All coming up right here on Channel 2. If you made a pledge during our August fundraising drive, thank you. And please return your check in the envelope we provided. Or if you've received a letter from us, there's no better time than right now to respond. With your help, the best is yet to come. Rush your check today to Channel 2 Boston, 02134, and thank you.
Morning Pro Musica, every morning at 7 on WGBH 89.7 FM.
This is Channel 2 Boston, public television in stereo for New England.
Tonight on the 10 o'clock news, an official welcome to Boston's new school superintendent, a new corporate sponsor for the Boston Marathon, and the complexities of designing computer software for Star Wars.
The problem then becomes one of putting these components, these itty-bitty pieces, into a system that performs the mission that you want it to perform. And if you can't do that, then components are just expensive toys.
The 10 o'clock news is made possible by your contribution and by grants from Shawmut Banks, providers of education, financing, and information at over 170 offices throughout Massachusetts. By Nimrod Press, printers and engravers. By New England Telephone, serving New England's communications needs for 100 years.
Good evening, I'm Christopher Lydon. We're asking Bill Rodgers tonight what it will take in addition to the John Hancock Endowment to make the Boston Marathon the runner's favorite again.
I'm Gail Harris. In tonight's headlines, yet another suicide car bomber struck in eastern Lebanon today, killing 14 people and injuring 46. And the value of South Africa's currency plunged again today. The rand is now worth only 38 cents against the dollar.
Also in the headlines, the Titanic Farm Credit Administration, holding $75 billion in loans, confirmed today that it is sinking helplessly into insolvency under the flood of farm losses. Agriculture Secretary John Block says the Reagan administration will help. He didn't say how. And the E.F. Hutton Brokerage Company, which got off easy for its check-kiting fraud, said today that it has found about a dozen culprits inside the company and will punish them. More on some of those stories a little later.
We begin tonight with the warm welcome for Boston's new superintendent of schools this evening at the Parkman House. When the doors open tomorrow at public schools all across the city, it will be more than just the start of another school year. City officials are calling it the start of a new era as well, now that federal Judge Arthur Garrity has withdrawn court supervision of the school system. Tonight, Superintendent Laval Wilson was Mayor Flynn's guest of honor at a reception introducing him to a number of other local and state officials. Both the mayor and the new superintendent agreed, after a decade of turmoil, it is time to trust school officials again to uphold the Constitution.
Oh, I think it's indeed quite time for that to occur. After 11 years of the judge being in control of the entire day-to-day operations, I think it's time for the school committee and the superintendent to again assume that responsibility. And we're willing and able and capable of doing that.
One of the things that impressed me about Dr. Wilson was that he seems to be a person of commitment to public school children, returning basics to classroom education. Verbal scores, reading scores, mathematics skills, those kind of things that I think have taken a back seat in public education in the city of Boston over the last several years. And I think that he's going to put them on the front burner, and we can get back to basics in terms of educating our kids.
And the president of the School Bus Drivers Union confirmed tonight that buses will roll as scheduled tomorrow. Earlier, there had been some talk of a strike in an ongoing dispute between the drivers, the city, and the company with the busing contract this year. But a strike decision has been postponed now until at least September 18th, while the negotiations continue.
The great dowager of Boston sports, the Boston Marathon, married a new sponsor today. The 10-year, $10 million deal with the John Hancock Mutual Life Insurance Company ends a 20-year relationship with the other insurance tower in the Back Bay, Prudential. The Hancock deal marks more than that, a plunge into professionalism and a much different style of support with which the aged, heretofore strictly amateur Boston Marathon means to fight back against the rich young rival races which in the 1970s and 80s took the top runners away. The Hancock Endowment will cover prize money. The 90th running of the Boston will be the first to pay prizes, $250,000 to start, more in years to come. Hancock will also be covering promotion, TV sponsorship, and a move of the Boylston Street finish line from Prudential's front yard to the Hancocks near Copley Square. The race still belongs to the Boston Athletic Association and in some sense to the amateur spirit that every year attracts thousands and thousands of runners who have little hope of winning the race but great joy in enduring it. Mayor Flynn tonight spoke for the city of Boston and for the marathon's honored also-rans.
I think it does two things. One allows Boston to maintain its unique status as an amateur event as defined by the rules, and number two, it also allows the Boston Marathon to attract world-class runners into the city of Boston. So I congratulate the BAA and the cities and towns along the route for recognizing the need to change. So I think it's a real victory for the people.
Our guest is the four-time winner of the Boston Marathon and record breaker, Bill Rodgers, who led the new wave of Boston running in the 70s and pressed the campaign for professional rewards in the Boston Marathon. First of all, let's be unsentimental about it. We call Boston #1, it is the oldest, but how far down has it slipped in the runners' rankings in the last 6 or 8, 10 years?
I would estimate that there are probably 300 marathons in the United States, and where it used to be #1 or among the top 3, that Boston this year, maybe it was around